Good evening, everybody, and welcome to show you the level of dedication. I am literally just landed, returning from our 3-day clergy conference. What's called the Archdiocese Presbyters Council puts on every 2 years a clergy conference that is just for clergy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, hi, Presbytera. It's nice to have you here. So I figured that just briefly, for those that are not aware of it, this is a retreat for clergy to go to. It's not a vacation. We don't go just so that just a party. But we go because it's an opportunity. Number one, to have fellowship among all the priests in the archdiocese. So here in the metropolis, of course, and every other metropolis, there's always, clergy get-togethers, but that's a small group of people. But this is like seeing all of the priests from all over. And when you see 200-300 priests all together, it's cool. It's very cool. So they'll bring a speaker in and talk about typically different, obviously, topics of spirituality. Okay. But then they'll also talk about, what's happening in the parish and what are some of the, we trade, they have discussion groups and we talk about the different things that we're doing in the parish. You want to guess what one of those things is that we talked about?
I don't know.
What
Did
Demos
you talk
does.
about Demos? Oh, yes.
Yeah, we all talked about Demos.
Yes,
Oh, boy.
of course,
He was the
of course.
topic of discussion.
The live streaming.
It would have had to last for a month, not a week.
So live streaming came up, and there's certainly two camps. There is the camp that feels that live streaming has to have an end. We did it for a reason, and now it has to end. Okay, so that we can get back to being in church because church is experiential. And then there's another camp, and I'm part of that camp, is that they want to continue live streaming. Okay, since you probably can hear all the arguments about why not to live stream, I think it's important that we talk, at least from personal experience, and talking to some of the brother clergy this week. Some of the positive things that came out are the same for all of us. Number one, and Demos has mentioned this to me because he's much more in touch with this, but we get a lot of people who will tune in and say that they've never seen an Orthodox liturgy before. So this is their first exposure to seeing what a liturgy is all about. They've heard it, and again, there's a lot of goofiness on YouTube about who Orthodox are. But for them to actually see an Orthodox liturgy, and I'm not the only one, there's many Orthodox liturgies that are out there. Intercession on Films does a beautiful one. My classmate, Father Athanasios, he live streams in Tarpon Springs, so they get to see a myriad of what an Orthodox service looks like. Not just me, but others. So that's a reason. Number two, I can't tell you how many children of elderly parents, when I say children, I mean
Kids of.
That they come to me and they say, my parents can't come out, and so this is their link, and then they say, well, they can tune into Radio Greece and they can listen to it there. No, they want to see their church and they want to see their people. They look and they say, oh, you know what? I remember her. I remember him. Oh, he's, and there's Father Jerry. I haven't seen Father Jerry in a long time. Wow, look at that. He served. So they connect with their church. So I think that's a second reason.
But also, when you think that if they want to come to an Orthodox service, they don't know what to expect, this is a great way to get an introduction so that they feel a little more
at ease.
Comfortable or at ease, knowing what to expect.
Knowing what to expect. I don't know, Demos, if you want to add anything
I
I
was also
missed.
going to say, for a lot of people who, especially in our international audience, who may not be near a Greek Orthodox church, or in some cases hundreds of miles away from one, that this is a good temporary measure for some services for them.
And I think that's a good point. None of the priests that I've talked to who support live streaming, including myself, see this as a replacement for church. That is absolutely not the case. The truest experience of Orthodoxy has to be in person. And all priests agree with that. Okay, but what this is offering are those who are unable to come. It's offering them their ability to connect. And one of the arguments that came up was, well, the elderly, if they can't, and infirmed, if they can't come, then we should go to them and they should receive communion, which every priest will tell you that they do that. But there's something about seeing the liturgy. Communion is important, but seeing the liturgy is important too.
It's additional. It's not a replacement. It's an additional thing for them. People who are sick. We still have people, who you and I have experienced this, who are still coming out from their homes from COVID.
Yeah, right. There's still that. That.
Well, and what you don't get, as you said, you don't receive communion because you're watching. 2, you don't get coffee hour because you're home, and that's a big part. The coffee hour, that's where you catch up with everybody. And 3rd, coming up November 19 is the bake sale, and we're going to have the Philoptochos baked goods out. You can't get that at home.
Yeah, and we don't have smell-o-vision yet, right?
And the digital euros are not very good.
Are not very good, right? So anyway, it was as for those of you that don't know that that's one of the programs that our archdiocese has, which is every 2 years. All of the clergy of the archdiocese get together for spiritual renewal, fellowship, and then just to discuss, some of the prevalent issues. I was, as we all were very, very impressed that Archbishop Elpidiaforos spent all 3 days with us. So it wasn't like he popped in, hey, how you doing, and then he left. He was there with us, eating with us, talking with us, staying for the lectures. So he was a very visible presence, and that was very, very important and very energizing for the clergy. So
and what
that's
was
great.
This? What was it?
It was in Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, nice.
Yeah. You know what the temperature was in Phoenix, or should I not tell you?
It was hot. As soon as you left, it became freezing here.
I know. It was 81.
Oh, it was snowing yesterday, very briefly.
So,
very, very briefly.
It was briefly, but a lot of snow. It looked like January out the window. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I know. So.
And over the past weekend, we just had a bunch of events too, here.
Yes. We had. So wait a minute now. Saturday
was the Ojide.
Saturday was the Ojide dance, and then Sunday we had trunk or treat.
Yeah,
with
big
the
turnout.
we had a great turnout. Even though it rained, we had it in our hall, and that was
it was fun.
That
Lots
was
of kids.
Great turnout. We've got the grocery run this weekend. The Seneca Park Zoo mobile is coming, right?
Yeah.
So Demos is keeping us full of activity, which is good. And you get to pick all the, not everybody likes everything. So we have a wide variety, a smorgasbord, right? Smorgasbord of things that we can do. All right.
Those local in Rochester also look out for a next Wednesday. We're having a young adult meeting. At
meet up.
Rohrbach, Rochester's first craft brewery.
I know. I'm looking forward to that too. I've only been to Rohrbach once, so I'm looking forward to going to that again. And so, stay tuned for that, and you'll be hearing from me on that.
And one last thing. Next week we will be taking a hiatus because right after that young adult meetup, I'm heading to Orlando. One of my best friends is getting married, and I can't miss that. But we will be back the following week.
Well, why can't you live stream from down there? It's only a wedding. Just
during the wedding.
Just take an hour out, and then all right.
I'm sure they'll love it.
Yes. So anyway, do we have any questions?
We might have a few.
All right.
You ready?
I am. Well, let's see.
All right. First question from Joshua. I'm on the path to become a catechumen. If I die before I'm accepted in the church, will Christ receive me?
Short answer is yes. Yes, he will receive you. We actually have had several cases where the person has been on the catechumen path and they've passed away. And so in talking with the bishop and some of the priests, They have, in some cases, depending upon how far they got into it, they were actually, I mean, obviously before they died, but they were actually given chrism and accepted into the Orthodox faith. So,
and it's still a catechumen?
And what? No. At that point, they become Orthodox.
So what if they're a catechumen and they're dedicated on the path and they die? Can they have an Orthodox funeral?
Technically, no, because they are not an Orthodox Christian yet. But again, there's always economia in the church, and certainly I or whoever it is would go to the bishop and we would ask and say, here is the extenuating circumstances, Your Eminence. What do you think is appropriate?
Sudden death, and and some
And obviously the bishop is going to ask, where was the person's heart? Is this something that he was thinking about, or this was something that he was convicted and he wanted to do?
Okay, all right. Blake asks, are all of man's inventions God's creation? That's good for the microwave and computers, but what about AI or weapons such as nuclear bombs?
Well, okay, so what God has given us, and the Holy Fathers talk about this all the time, is that God has given us a rational and reasonable mind, meaning that we can reason out things, okay? But the consequence of the fall is that we now have the ability to not only see the good, but that we can also take the path of evil. So the answer is yes, our reason and our rationale come from God, but our free will and how we exercise that, because not only was the atom bomb destructive, but many things that came out of the science of creating the bomb were very helpful in terms of other technologies which are very good, and it's going to be the same thing with AI, in terms of how we use AI. If this discussion about AI is gonna we can download our soul into a machine. I think this is nonsense. Okay, so this is not proper use of our rational mind. So again, it comes from God, but the fall has given us the ability to also do what is not good.
Okay, all right. Grogweed Walker states, religion divides and is an over attempt to monopolize what Jesus said when all of us miss the mark and get it wrong in many aspects. Comments on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, it sounds like, and maybe you read it another way, but it sounds like the case against organized religion, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and the issue that the Orthodox Church has with that is that without some kind of guidance and some kind of discipline, so let's not use the word organization, let's use the word discipline. Without a structured discipline, then what you have is a person that can determine how to interpret Scripture by themselves without a guide. And again, the Orthodox Church will go back to, many of the fathers have used the example of the doctor. Okay, you're not going to go to a doctor who has not studied under somebody who is knowledgeable in the medical arts. All right, you're just not going to do that. So why is it any different in theology? What makes a person think that they are able to interpret scriptures totally on their own? The Holy Fathers never encouraged that, and the Holy Fathers didn't even do that. Each one of them had their own mentor or spiritual father, if you want to call it that, or we should call it that. All right. So I like to use, or the church uses the word discipline rather than the word organized, because organized makes it sound ritualistic, that we follow rituals, ergo we're kind of a museum. No, we follow a discipline, and that discipline is important, and it can't blow with the whims of what society thinks is good and what society thinks is not good.
Okay. J.B. Bobcat asks, is Thanksgiving an Orthodox celebration?
Well, no, but except in the sense of that St. Paul tells us to give thanks to God in all things, right? So every day is Thanksgiving, right? So, but no, not as a holiday, right?
Okay.
But should we be encouraged to celebrate Thanksgiving?
Why not? Absolutely. In fact, the Archbishop, at least the Archbishop here in America, every year grants adia, or permission, economia, to eat meat, right? Because it happens during the Christmas fast. So yeah, so they support it, and they tell us, yes, give thanks, of course.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And actually, speaking of the Christmas fast, skipping ahead, Diane has the question. When does the Christmas fast begin?
Oh, you know.
You need an exact date.
November 15th.
Is it November 15th?
Mm-hmm.
It's always the day before my birthday.
I know, a day before.
Usually, yeah.
It's always
it's the day before my birthday.
It's always November 15th.
All right. Well, let's see here.
Do you think I'm wrong?
Well, I'm verifying, right? Trust but verified.
You need to flip that calendar more often, my friend.
You're a little behind there. What does it say?
Nativity fast begins November 15th. So it's on the Archdiocese calendar.
Can you give exception for my birthday as well?
Huh? Not until your sainthood is proclaimed.
Okay, good.
Start your birthday early. Celebrate early. All right. Okay. Tom Sherman says, "Hello, Father. Is it a requirement that Orthodox Christians pray to the saints, or is it voluntary and left up to the individual Christian?"
It is certainly voluntary, but again, we want to be precise in our language. We don't, again, and all of our listeners have heard us say this, we don't pray to the saints, right? What we ask for is their intercessions, that their prayers add strength to our prayers. I just want to make sure that we're using the correct verbiage, because if we say it wrong, then people of other Christian denominations will say, you know what, hey, see what you guys are doing? So it is not a mandatory thing, but it is a tradition that the Orthodox Church has, that we ask for the intercession of the saints and to add their prayers to our prayers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Matthew Scharf says, "I am confused about symbolism of the small entrance. Is it Christ is giving us the gospel, or Father Farley's book, Let Us Attend, that the church comes together as one and we go up to heaven for worship?"
Well, we don't have to have a singular symbolism for everything. There are multiple symbols in everything what we do, but remember, keep in mind that it begins with practicality and then symbolism is added. The reason for the small entrance, the reason for the small entrance was the gospel was in the skevophylakon, and it had to be transported from the outside of the church to the bishop or the proistamenos, so that he could read it. So they had to process and physically bring it to him. So we always want to keep in mind that we're doing this for a practical purpose. And now we can put on the symbology. Now, clearly the symbology is that when the priest faces away and you don't see who he is and he raises the gospel, then yes, we're listening to the words of Jesus Christ himself. So yes, Christ brings us the gospels through the writings of the apostles or the evangelists, all right? But equally so, the second part of what what he said is absolutely true, that the liturgy as a whole lifts us up into or outside of time, meaning that we are lifted up with the saints together. So that's why you hear that's
there we go. There's your bingo card.
Oh, shoot, wrong book.
We have to put the bingo card out.
Yes, we
officially.
do. Yes, we do. Yes.
Especially since I think the ladies of our church are actually playing bingo right now.
That's right. They are playing bingo. That's true.
Yes.
And then our people can say they can text in bingo when they when they get a bingo.
We'll get together. We'll put that out every time he says anyway.
The prayer, the silent prayer that is read by the priest just prior to the small entrance, speaks about the fact that all of us, both militant, and the militant means
those of us still here,
and the triumphant, right? Those are past. Master, Lord our God, you have established in heaven the orders of the host of angels and archangels to minister your glory. Grant that the holy angels may enter together with us, and that we may serve and glorify your goodness. So that we are being, as the priest comes around, that it's not just us, but we are attended by the host of angels.
All right. Very good. Mr. Ox asks, can I be an Orthodox Christian and still be in the hemp cannabis industry? It does help people who are going through treatments for different things. Cancer is one that comes to mind.
Yes. Yeah. So it's all about application, right? It's all about the use. How is it being used? And if it is for the benefit of mankind, it doesn't have to be a lofty thing. It could be just, that person needs it. And there has been documented, proof that it does help, right? Okay, so in that sense, yes. I mean, the church wouldn't have an issue with that. But, again, isn't it industry on a fine line that,
Well, I mean, we can make it more broad because there are a lot of industries on the fine line, whether it's weapons, if you're selling weapons, or military industrial complex, alcohol,
right.
Pharmaceutical companies, what they did with OxyContin, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. There's always that
fast food.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean right, with the weight issues and all that. So as long as the CBD outlet doesn't go the way of the Tulsa King. Have you seen the Tulsa King?
Oh, the Tulsa King?
Actually.
Yeah, and that's one of the first things that Sylvester Stallone does a really good job in that. But the first thing he does when he comes into town is he walks into the CBD place and he takes it over and he says, "Okay, here's what my cut's going to be." So it immediately degrades into.
Oh, you said Tulsa King. You know what? I was thinking about Tiger King, and I'm like, couldn't figure it out. Tulsa King.
But how do you contend with that, being unorthodox and knowing that you're in an industry? Okay, it could do some good things here, or it can do some bad things here. But the possibility that because you're providing a service or a product that can be used for something bad, how do you contend with that?
Well, that you have to make sure that your management is clean, right? That what you're doing is for God's benefit and not for your. I mean, I get it is for your personal benefit because it is a way to make money. But there is a helpful aspect of that. But again, you're riding the fine line, depending upon how it's being used. So you have to be careful because then you can say, well, you know what, I'm just selling it to them, and whatever they do, they do. And if it involves somebody that gets in an accident or it involves somebody that causes them to lose their job or something like that. So you have to be very careful, just like somebody who's selling, like a bartender, right? A bartender can't just say, you know what, I can just serve you till you get drunk. I don't care. You're liable for that. So you do have a personal responsibility from an Orthodox perspective, and you got to really be careful how you walk that line, And that, and that is as an Orthodox Christian, that's a discussion that you have to have face to face with your priest, and you just got to be honest with him and say, here's the industry that I'm in, and what can I do? And so that discussion really has to happen with your priest or your bishop.
Okay. All right. And then we have a shout out. Hello from Saskatchewan from Chris Fed.
That's a first, I think.
Wow, Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Wow. Miggs asks, what do you think about churches that say salvation only exists in their church? In order for churches to ever start reuniting, there has to be patience, understanding, teaching, and prayer. What separates Oriental Orthodox from the rest of the Eastern Orthodox?
Well, I think those
are
two
different questions.
It had a ... at the end.
So those people, again, that say that the grace of God does not extend beyond the boundaries of the Orthodox Church, I am glad that they have a hotline to God to know exactly where God's grace ends and begins and ends. So, they must be, spiritual giants that they have this communication with God. So again, we cannot support that. What Christ wanted and what Christ commanded the apostles to do, or his disciples to do, was to be apostles, apostelno, meaning to be sent out and baptize and preach to all nations, so that there is one body of Christ. So anything that divides us in that sense of, well, you're not the body of Christ, but I am, it ends up in the same situation with the Pharisees, right? So now all of a sudden we know what's right. We know how to interpret the law of Moses, okay? And so the same thing that Jesus Christ railed against the Pharisees of his time is the same thing that we're doing to ourselves today. So the goal is always to have communication. But what happens is, as I've said this before, what happens is people think that communicating with the Orthodox, with the Catholic and the Protestant Church immediately means that we are sacrificing our truth. And nothing could be further from the truth. We're not sacrificing, but what we're saying is we're entering into dialogue. And that dialogue always has to stand. All right?
Okay.
And then the part about the Oriental Orthodox. This question always comes up. What I'm going to do, and I mentioned it because we spent time together at the clergy retreat here. So my brother in Christ, Father Athanasios Saros, who is the dean of the Cathedral of Tarpon Springs.
Where you grew up?
Where I grew up. I had to remember where I grew up. Okay. He has made a very nice video that speaks to exactly that point. So what I'm going to do is, if it's okay, I'm going to give the link to Demos.
I'll put in the description.
Put it in the description, because it's not a topic that I am well versed in, but he did a very nice job of carrying us through that. And I did watch it, but my memory's not good enough to remember the details, so I don't want to shortcut it. So I think that's and to kind of promote what my brother Father Athanasios does is I want to show that video. So we'll put that video up there.
All right, don't forget to send it to me.
Yes, that's right. Yes, okay.
And Diane asks, "Don't pound on the book."
What? And you're hitting Christ by the secondly. I think that came up another time, and someone said it bothered them that you were doing exactly that.
Okay.
Yes, you.
Shame on
you.
Oh
no!
It's you didn't even realize you were doing that, did you?
Well, I was touching it, but then I was kind of so okay. I'll put it over there.
Okay. Wow.
Where are you going to go to for confession?
Yeah, that's right.
Where do priests go for their own confession? To the bishop or to another priest?
No, they can go to the bishop, but most times we go to a fellow brother priest. So
is that a requirement?
Confession, yeah.
But for priests, is there a requirement that you do it every so often or every week?
No, again, there's no requirements with confession, but the fact that it needs to be done on a regular basis, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times, priests, can unfortunately be sometimes as bad as ladies, that they get caught in worldly things and they totally forget about it until. And that's happened to me. A priest will call me up and he'll say, "Hey, Father Angelo, do you mind if you hear my confession?" And then that makes me think of, that's something I should do. So then I'll call a priest and do confession myself.
Well, you have the priest come to do confession with you, and that you could just swap
I've done that before too. I've swapped. Yeah, I've swapped and done that before. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You think that would be very convenient to do at this laity you just went to?
Actually, they had confession. So there was it was set in the schedule that a certain time of the day they set aside for just confessions.
Mm-hmm. Right, but it's like anything else. You have a specific priest you like to go to because you have that connection.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Mig says, going with your open of tonight's show, what happens in a clergy retreat? Do you talk about how to talk to parishioners, about how there is more modern thinking, discussions, or how to defend theology of the church, or what else?
And he does acknowledge he answers some of the questions later in the open, but if you can elaborate a little bit more.
You mean on just what he said right here?
Yeah. So what do you do at a clergy retreat? So I know you went to Vespers, and you probably had Orthros.
And confession.
And confession.
Right. So we have services. We have services every day. If sometimes it's a matin service, sometimes it's a vesper service. There's always liturgy. So we do that. The discussions are usually centered around the speaker's topic. All right. So each clergy session retreat will have a particular theme, okay? And like for example, this was Archbishop Maxime, who is the Archbishop in the Serbian Church, but I forgot exactly where. And so what he spoke about was the idea that the Orthodox Church lives in the future. So kind of the idea of the future is now, right? So we don't live for just today, but Christ has brought the eschaton forward. So it's not something that we just are looking forward to, but that it's the time that we're living in. And so he spoke about that. And then that discussion was centered around how do we apply that. Now, so that's the theme of the retreat. But when we as priests get together, what Miggs brought up are things that come up. Those are some of the things that come up. So it's like, for example, so the big thing that came up this time was the discussion about live streaming. Okay, but other things that come up too is situations with parishioners. That's why we go a lot of times, is that I've had a situation with a parishioner. I wasn't sure how to deal with it. I talked to somebody else and they said, I never thought about that. Let me do that. So we do talk about our parishioner situations and how we've dealt with them. But those discussions happen more organically than the actual breakout session for the theme of the retreat.
And then you do have some recreation time.
And one of the things that the APC retreat prides itself on is that one of the days and again, it's not even the whole day. One of the days from 9 until 3, they'll always offer 4 what they call adventure packages. So, for example, this year it was a trip to St. Anthony's Monastery, which we've been to, right? Mm-hmm. There was a local Harley dealership that gave 12 bikes, because there was 12 priests who ride motorcycles, of which my spiritual father is one of those. Okay, and they took a 200-mile ride through the mountains, so that was theirs. The other one was the one that I went through, which was a tour of historic Scottsdale. And then, do you want to guess what the last one was?
Golf.
Golf.
Of course.
Of course. So it's because there's fellowship in that too, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, because you're with your brother priests, and so you're doing something that you personally enjoy. So there's always that adventure package. Mm-hmm. But sometimes what happens is, people hear about these retreats and then they think that the entire retreat is golf, or the entire retreat, it's 9 to 3 for one day. Right. And I think that's mm-hmm. very, very appropriate to, give us that time to just have fellowship within some kind of adventure.
The motorcycle package sounds awesome.
oh yeah, it's it's pretty, and they donate that, so that's pretty nice.
Wow. And you went to museum.
Yeah, went to a Western museum, and Billy, and when we went to the museum, we just wanted to tour the museum, and then all of a sudden somebody said, "Okay, everybody into the auditorium," and we're like, "What auditorium? Maybe there's a film." We get in there, and it was Billy Schenk, Billy Schenk, who was like one of the famous artists who worked with Andy Warhol. And he developed a particular pop culture style of painting. And he talked about his life and what he did and everything like that. And we're like, wow, we got kind of a...
Well, so you had fun.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing a lot of new faces in the chat today. So I just want to explain real quick. We answer all the questions in the order that we receive them in the live chat. We accept all kinds of questions. So if there's something you're wondering about, feel free to ask. And if you do like to donate with a super chat, we will prioritize that question.
Man, you sounded like one of those phone operators,
yeah.
And they say your call will be answered in the order in which it was received.
I put on my radio voice. There we go.
What you should have said is each call is important to us.
Oh no, they're not all important.
All right, and we have a hello from Brazil. So we've got Brazil, Saskatchewan, from Poland. Oh, it's in the way. I have to pull this down a little bit.
Not just from Brazil, from Teresópolis, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Ooh, wow.
Yes.
All right.
And hello from Damien. Hello.
And from Poland, it says that this is from, I'm not even going to try to say the name because I don't want to offend them. But hello, greetings from Poland. A few weeks ago, I passed from Catholic Church to Orthodox Church.
Wow.
Praise God.
Praise God. Wow.
Oh, we got a super chat from Diane. No question. But thank you, Diane.
All right. And I still, there's two outstanding questions. One is the question of the gospel. I asked.
You mean 300 priests didn't know the answers?
I asked. When do they do this? And so nobody was able to answer that question.
Maybe the priest had his mind on something else and just had it facing that way without intending to. I mean, things like that happen.
Yeah, could be.
Personal flair. I mean, have you noticed that every priest has like a particular signature?
Something that they do. Some of those signatures bishops would prefer they don't do. Yeah, because I can remember mine was because I got influenced by the Antiochian Church when I was in Flint. Right, we had a nice camaraderie,
Mm-hmm.
and so we had the Antiochian Church there, and they love to do this, right? They love to do with the arms upraised and all of that. And the bishop saw that, and he's like, "Why are you doing that?" He says, "You're being affected by Father," and he knew Father X, and he says, "Don't do that. Don't raise up your arms." Okay.
I've personally never seen other priests flip the censer all the way around like you do.
I know, but the one in Traverse City does, Father Cyprian. So
which you do raise your hands in the at one point in the let us lift our hearts.
Yes, I do. Right, let us lift up our hearts. So yes, I do do that. But
that makes sense, though.
Right. Yeah. And I think he even said what you said. He goes, "It looks really Protestant." Right? Because isn't that typically that's a non-denominational, not Protestant, a non-denominational.
Yeah.
Thing. Right.
Yes. All right. Spiro asks, at what point is Halloween considered okay as far as the Orthodox are concerned, and at what point is it not okay from a religious standpoint?
So again. Because we've definitely talked about this one before, but it does bear repeating, is when it is just done for fun, okay? Meaning that like in Flint, we would call it a harvest party. Here we call it trunk or treat, okay? And the idea is it's a chance for our little kids to have another opportunity to get together. And in my emails, I always say, that please avoid costumes that have witches, that have devils, demons, So anything like that, avoid that, because that's where it can cross the line. But they came dressed in their favorite Marvel Comics thing, or bunch of characters, the Ninja Turtles.
Harry Potter was popular.
Okay, all right, that's on the line. I got it. So okay, so it crossed the line. But there was not one single kid there that believed in magic. Like, ooh, I've got this wand and wands. No, none of those kids had. They liked the movie, or they liked their character, and they came and they had fun. All right. What the Orthodox Church rejects are Halloween parties that involve a haunted house, where you're starting to tread into areas where, why are you scaring kids? And that's not the point. And then obviously to have a haunted house, you have to have things that are not Orthodox, like ghosts, witches, demons, spooky sounds,
Zombies. Are zombies?
Okay, right, zombies, right. Chainsaws, and so that's where you... What? Violence, right? So that's where you cross the line. But just like what we did this Saturday, just kids getting together, having a fun time, enjoying being together. The parents who haven't seen one another for a while, they kind of get together and that fellowship.
You do a story.
And I did tell a story. That's right.
The Witch of Endor.
The Witch of Endor. Yeah. So, all right, but that was okay because that was in the Bible. It's good. It's
yes.
So would it be permissible to go for Halloween as the Witch of Endor?
As the Witch of Endor.
I found a loophole.
Oh,
is that where Endora comes from on Bewitched?
No, but I think that's where the Ewoks come from.
Oh, right. Oh, so. Yeah.
We do have a super chat from Joe Jones. Thank you, Joe. Do priests in the Greek church or other Orthodox churches have to retire at a certain age?
No, they do not. Now, the only time that they do have to retire is when they're not capable of physically serving the liturgy. That's the only time that they do have to retire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Anonymous asks, why are there 2 gospel readings on Orthodox Sundays? Is one less important than the other? Does the one read earlier ever get read later confused?
I think they mean Orthros and then Divine Liturgy.
Mm-hmm. So I was thinking he was talking about Sunday of Orthodoxy.
No. On Sundays.
Oh, on Sundays. Okay, so, but remember that the 11 Gospels that are read during Orthros are only of a resurrectional nature. They are very, very closely tied because they talk about Jesus's post-resurrection. So they're all tied to that theme. Whereas the Gospel reading that is, and almost exclusively, I'm trying to remember now, they're all from the Gospel of John. All right, but the Sunday Gospel is taken from all of the 4 Gospels. And so this is a much broader idea and scope because it includes Jesus while he was alive during his ministry. It includes when he was born, obviously. It includes his interaction with the Jewish leadership and the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin at the time, and certainly also then includes his crucifixion, his trial, his crucifixion, and the resurrection. So it's much, much broader. But the Orthros liturgies, the Orthros gospel readings are very narrowly confined to post-resurrectional events.
All right. Aaron says, hi, everyone. My little sister is being raised in the Mormon faith by my stepmom and is going to be baptized in 2 years when she turns 8. I was asked to be a witness. Should I accept?
Well, if you are an Orthodox Christian, then you cannot accept. I've had a number of people that friends who have asked me if I could be a godparent, but they are not Orthodox. And they've been Protestant and they've been Catholic, but I've had to say no because I can't teach them Catholic values. Not that Catholic values are bad, I mean, obviously, or Protestant values. Not saying Protestant values are bad, but I I am an Orthodox Christian, and that's what I would have to. That's how I would raise that child, as the godparent. So in that sense, no, you could not act as the godparent for somebody in the Mormon Church.
And they go on to say in Mormonism, I guess there are supposed to be at least 2 witnesses at their baptisms. How many do we require?
I don't think we require any witnesses, right? As far as I'm concerned.
Well,
as far as I know, we don't have any witnesses.
I'm not sure if they use witness as same as godparent.
Oh,
sponsor.
Okay. Oh, that's the term for that.
I don't know. I don't.
Well, is there and again, not knowing enough about Mormonism, certainly in Orthodoxy and in Catholicism, there is an ongoing responsibility of the godparent. So at the baptism, do the Mormons see that in the same light? Is there a responsibility that is post-baptism? I don't know.
Well, what if it's just like they required to do it in front of another party? Like a witness at a wedding.
Yes, but again, your presence there indicates that you are
approving.
Yes, it's
endorsing.
Thank you. That you're endorsing what's going on. So your physical presence can't be there.
All right, Ariel Harp. Good evening. I've noticed humility is huge in being a good Christian. How can you be humble and have a healthy self-esteem? Is it bad to think highly of yourself?
Yes, it's bad to think highly of yourself, but there's nothing wrong in being proud of your accomplishments. All right, where Orthodoxy would say it becomes problematic is if you deny the source of your achievements. So your achievements come from a synergy between who God is and the talents he's given you, and then your ability, as Jesus Christ says in the parable of the talents, what you do with those talents. Okay, so there's a synergy there. God gives you those talents, and then you have to use those talents. Okay, so in that way, it's say the question once, so I make sure I answer it again.
Wow, it just popped down.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my gosh.
So I've noticed humility is huge in being a good Christian. How can you be humble and have a healthy self-esteem?
And the humility is in recognizing that your talents are God-given. And so that you don't walk around and say, look what I did. The correct Orthodox response is glory to God for the talents that he's given me, and that in my humility, I hope that what I have done with them is his will. But I'm still proud of what I'm proud. I'm proud that I graduated with an engineering degree. I'm proud that I'm a pilot. Can I say I'm proud of being a priest? I don't know if I can say that. But more secular things.
You feel blessed. You feel blessed.
Blessed. There we go. Blessed. But there are many secular things that I've done that I'm very proud of. Okay, but if I now start to go around and tell everybody about how great I am because I've done this, then clearly I'm not being humble, and what I'm showing is that I have done these things and they have not come from God.
So how do you best find that line between being proud and having pride?
Spend less time talking about yourself and spend more time doing.
Good. Some clarification from Aaron F., who says, I should point out witness in this context is not the same as us. I think my role would just be to watch and see her baptized and receive the blessing. But I think you answered that.
Yeah. So again, it's silence and presence. The Orthodox Church takes as endorsement, and I'd have to be very very careful of that. And again, since you are, it sounds like he.
Aaron
is an Orthodox Christian. Again, I direct you to your priest. This is a great question to have a one-on-one personal talk with your priest and say, here's the situation. They're really good friends. I don't know what to do.
It's his sister.
What's that?
It's his sister.
It's his sister, yeah.
Yeah,
see?
so it's...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, he did say that. But since you are an Orthodox Christian, please go have a conversation with your priest and see what it is that he says about it. But just from what I'm hearing, I don't think it's something that you can participate in.
Could he still attend? I mean, we attend weddings that are Catholic.
Yeah, and we tend to synagogue, yeah. Right? Yeah, I mean, in that sense, I see what you're saying. Is that yes, he has no participatory role, but it is his sister, and so he's going. Okay.
But so there, you can attend, but not participate.
Right.
All right, I'm going to pick up some questions of people who haven't had a chance.
All right, let's go.
Have theirs answered. From Nicholas, is the Protestant faith, I think that might be a autocorrect or something, is the Protestant faith and the, it says offer tax faith. So I'm thinking other faith, I'm not sure, similar in these services. I'm not sure what they're referring to, but is the Protestant faith... I'm
trying to think what that would be.
Offer tax faith.
So if he's still on, maybe try to maybe rewrite that one
or explain, because maybe that's something I haven't heard of.
If he's talking about the IRS, then I have a lot of comments I can make.
So we'll bypass that one, and hopefully Nicholas will resubmit. From Daily Christianity. Hello, Father. I have a question. What is the Eastern Orthodox view on speaking in tongues? I am an inquirer.
Funny enough, we do have a video on that, and also, funny enough, I just remembered we also have a video that explains the difference between the small and great entrance as well. One of our very first videos, way back.
Oh wow!
For the earlier question.
Oh, so we do have that. Okay,
yeah.
All right. So you want to take that one? Speaking in tongues.
Well, I think. Am I correct in that that's been talked about in the Bible, speaking in tongues, mm-hmm. but you have to have someone able to interpret as Correct. They say what you're saying, or it means nothing.
Right. So to just as President Teta said, to just speak in tongues, it's as St. Paul said, you're nothing but a clanging gong and a banging cymbal. So somebody has to be able to interpret that. And that somebody then also has to be able to interpret that, because that is supposed to be a special language, right? That is known, only to God, right? Okay, or is direct from God. So, if you start speaking in tongues and then all of a sudden I say, "Oh, I'm interpreting that," we have to be very careful of that. So we're not saying the Orthodox Church does not deny that there are people that can have not only prophetic visions, but can also utter prophetic things, in a language that we don't understand. But again, that does not happen on any sort of regular basis, and is much, much more the exception to the rule, and has to be done under very, very controlled conditions.
And then some people I've heard, feel pressured. Everybody else is supposedly speaking in tongue, and then they're looking at you. Why aren't you? And isn't that such a joke? I've heard many people say, well, then they were pressuring me, so I spoke Greek, and they thought I was speaking in tongues. I've heard that said by several people. But still, some people might feel pressured. They just say anything, and it's not really tongues.
We have a Greek term for it, glossolalia, if I remember correctly.
Yes, right, yep. Mm-hmm.
But isn't the interpretation as well, when the Holy Spirit came upon to the apostles and they started speaking in tongues, isn't one of the interpretations being that they were able to speak in different languages so they can spread the gospel?
Yeah, and because in Acts it says, and each one heard it in their own language. So it even says that. Right, absolutely.
Donis asks, do bishops and patriarchs confess?
As far as I know, they do. Everybody, there is nobody who is outside the realm of confession.
Who does a patriarch confess to?
Well, I mean, even the patriarch, had a spiritual father, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sure that during his time, right, he would confess to that spiritual father. Now, maybe that spiritual father's probably passed away now, right? Okay, but I'm sure that the patriarch, just like priests, have their own brotherhood that they trust and they go to.
Right. Okay. Mark Fetch says Christians obviously should stay far away from any occult practices. However, what are the differences between asking for intercession from those passed on versus communicating with spirits in the occult, etc.?
Ooh, interesting.
Well, so you're not during intercessory prayer, you are not expecting a response. You're not expecting the saint to come and say, "Message received, I'm praying for you," or
so you're not summoning the spirit.
Yeah, you're not summoning the spirits. There's
no two-way conversation.
There's no two-way communication unless God allows it, right? Okay, because we do know that the Virgin Mary has spoken to people, Christ has spoken to people, so on and so forth. So if God allows that, but you're right. I think that key point is you're not summoning anybody, all right? What you're asking is for those intercessory prayers for the saints to pray on your behalf or to add their voice. Okay, but you don't know if that happens or not. I mean, we believe that it does happen, but you're not getting any type of confirmation, all right? So in that sense, it's not like because it seems like in the occult, they almost kind of use it as possession, that and that really was the whole thing that came up with Saul and the Witch of Endor, right? Is that who has summoned me, right, out of my grave? Okay, and so in that sense, that's not what's happening here. We are making a request, just as we would in a memorial service, right? That we ask for the intercessions for those who have departed, but our hope is that they hear and that they add their prayers, but we have no way of knowing.
Well, with the saints, it's for the glory of God, but when we're talking the occult, it's not.
Oh, that's true, because usually when we're summoning as Saul did, we're summoning for a very specific human reason, not for the glory of God. Good point. Wow, yes.
Addendum, Ouija board. Fun game, or should it be banned from our houses?
Yeah, we should not be messing with the Ouija board. I mean, look, I think you did it, and
one time, and it lasted about 2 minutes, and then we got scared and
yep.
we got out. Yeah,
and we had, and I don't know who bought it, but we had a Ouija board growing up when I was a kid, and it did not work out well, and we ended up throwing it away. So
yeah.
no,
I was 12, I think, when my neighbors did that. But
we have a super chat. Based on the outcomes of the Synod of Synodality, would it be wrong for me to leave the Roman Catholic faith to become Orthodox?
No,
or depending on the outcome of the Synod.
No, it wouldn't be wrong, but what we don't want as Orthodox is we want to make sure that you're leaving for the right reasons and that you don't become a Catholic basher when you become Orthodox. Okay, the Catholic Church, the grace of the Holy Spirit extends into the Catholic Church as it does into the Protestant Church, as it does into the Orthodox Church. But what happens a lot of times is, it's almost like a badge of honor of I'm no longer Catholic, and those crazy Catholics, I don't believe anything. And sometimes I find that they don't even know their own Catholic theology, much as sometimes our Orthodox laity don't know their Orthodox theology. So just be very careful with that.
And Tommy may have helped us. I can't believe neither of us thought of it. Interprets Nicholas's question.
Oh, good. Okay.
Is the Protestant faith and the Orthodox faith similar in these services?
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Offer tax. Orthodox somehow may have
okay.
corrected to the offer tax. Somehow.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Now we can talk about tithing.
So, but which services is
until we get any specific, similar in services, the way that they're carried out.
Okay, so now in what we call high church in Protestantism, okay, they have a liturgical structure. And that liturgical structure is very similar to what we have. Okay, they don't have as much incense as we have. Okay, and their idea of the consecration act is different theologically from ours, but from a rubric standpoint, there are many similarities in Protestant high church. So yes, the answer to that is yes. And because that comes out of Anglicanism, which had its roots in Catholicism and Orthodoxy, then obviously there is a similarity. But just like where the Catholic Church over time has changed that liturgical structure, that's what's happened in the Protestant Church too. Now, in low Protestantism, that's where we lose really all sense of similarity, because there's no longer a liturgical structure to the church. And what happens is that the first part of the liturgy becomes the essence of the entire low Protestant church service, because it's all about the gospel reading and the sermon. And so everything else falls to the wayside, because there is no consecration act. Okay, the Eucharist is specifically a remembrance, but it is not in any way transformational. All right, and so the focus is on the pastor giving a good sermon for the gospel reading of the day, and that gospel reading of the day is decided and determined by the pastor. Whereas in the Anglican and high Protestant church, like Orthodoxy, each one of those gospel readings are already already set in the liturgical year by the episcopacy.
All right.
Does that help? Is that okay?
All right. Dave says, how common are Orthodox monasteries in the USA? Are there monastic orders with different? It says, I think charismas, such as Dominican, Franciscan, etc.
No, Orthodox. That's one unique difference from Orthodoxy. Is an Orthodox monk is an Orthodox monk, and we don't even use the term nun. Monk is monk. All right, so it applies for women as well as it applies for men. So, but there are no orders within the monastic community in Orthodoxy.
Okay, all right, and then again, I'm going to mispronounce it. Our Polish friend. If I'm a member of the Polish Orthodox Church, can I join to the Eucharist in the USA? So can they receive communion? I think is what they're asking.
Oh yeah, I mean if it is a canonically recognized Orthodox church, then you are allowed to commune in any Orthodox church that we're in communion with.
And hello, Love World Music.
So
yes.
No, well, I wanted to get back to the gentleman from Poland. So when you come here to Rochester, then you can receive communion, right?
Sure. All right. But hello back to Love World Music. You kind of skipped over that, so all right. We want to make sure we say hello back.
You got very excited there.
I know, because somebody from Poland. But hey, Love World Music, hello, and nice that you're joining in with us.
All right. Dave says, I watched your liturgy online this week, and it sounded like chant was used rather than the choir. Was it technically Orthodox chant?
Okay. So we have a practice here at the Annunciation that has been here for quite a while. Is the last Sunday of the month we reserve for Byzantine chant. But unfortunately, over the years that I've been here, we've been having some difficulty getting people who are interested in just chant. Well, we are finally finding some people like Sam, like Marco, obviously Lori, John Dides, who want to rebuild that chant structure. So what you saw was us kind of getting back into the idea of having a Byzantine tradition and the American choir tradition. Mm-hmm. And we do that the last Sunday of the month.
Yes. All right. Ray Kokinos homeschool dad here with a Protestant anatomy class for our kids. It has many creation references from a Protestant view. How can I instruct the differences in an Orthodox view? Any references?
We do have our video on that. Funny enough, virtual Sunday school talking about creation.
So as Demos said, there are a couple of videos that we've made that speak about Sunday school and Sunday school videos that speak about creation, but there are also a couple of resources that are out there that speak about the Orthodox perspective on creation from a kid's standpoint. Let's get that as a homework assignment. I'll take a look at those resources, and then I can send those along.
All right, I'll add it to the description once again. Send it to me.
So, okay, all right. And
now you have two.
Right, and I am getting the calendar out to our listener in Brazil. And then also the gifts are coming out. It's just that I got backlogged last week with the events for the clergy conference, so I got a little backed up there. But now I'm back, so I'm going to get focused on that, and that is coming.
All right. Jumping down to
can you elaborate? Give them something for now.
Well, I don't have any resources here.
No, but at the very least, what are some of the what's the Orthodox view on creation? Give a little bit.
Is there a difference? What do we believe differently?
What do we believe? I mean,
well, okay, so like the most striking difference is the idea of the 6,000 years, right? So that's one of the big differences is that Orthodoxy does support the science of the fact that creation that we don't take the idea the literal idea that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. So we can support the science that it's millions of years old. So that there's a difference there. Also, in terms of God's relationship with Adam and Eve, and how we look at God, how we look at Adam, how we look at Eve. Okay, there is this idea that in Protestantism, which has taken it out of Catholicism, which is this idea of original sin, is that through Adam and Eve there is an ancestral sin that is passed along to all successive generations. And the Orthodox Church does not believe in that. They believe that the consequence of that sin, death, that's what has entered into the world, and that's what Christ, the Son of God, has rescued us from. Okay, and that the banishment is seen in a different way, in terms of God says, you have eaten from the tree of good and evil, and therefore you've broken my commandment, and now you have to leave. And the Orthodox answer is more about that the command was that should you eat from that tree, and you know the difference or you know good and evil, then on that day you shall die. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't drop dead, okay, on that moment, but what it meant was their eyes were open to the fact that they could look away from God, and separation from God is death. And so how we interpret God's words to Adam and Eve is looked at a little bit different. It's a little bit more legalistic in Protestantism. I told you not to do something, you did it, you're out. And we see that more that was an outcome, that was a consequence. So not God's command of, well, you're out of here now, because now they have the opportunity to know that they can separate themselves from God, and in that they will now die.
And to elaborate, we don't believe in a creationism approach. We don't believe the 6,000 or 10,000 year idea, or that man lived with dinosaurs, or in some cases,
we said the 6,000, but the dinosaurs too, right?
Yeah, that we do believe also the dinosaurs existed. I don't know if there are some Protestant churches that don't believe that dinosaurs
exist, and the Orthodox Church, just has a problem with that because, I mean, the bones are the bones, right? I mean,
Jurassic Park is an important film for us.
Right? It's full of truth.
All right. Confessor for you. Speaking of God's will always being done, do Orthodox Christians believe in Molinism, or do we reconcile God's will and ours by appealing to mystery ultimately? Obviously don't believe Calvinism.
Oh, why have I heard M-O-L?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Molinism. I think it's come up before.
I think so.
So I've...
It's named after the 16th century Spanish Jesuit priest. It's the thesis that God has middle knowledge, or scientia media, the knowledge of counterfactuals, particularly counterfactuals regarding human action.
You know what I've got to have on hand here is I've got to have John Damascus's Fount of Knowledge, because one of his chapters is dedicated to all of the heresies of the early church. That would help. All right. Wow.
Do you need to look into that then?
The name used to reconcile grace and free will. Both of these principles are clearly defined. Council of Trent. Okay, so we're probably going to have. I'm thinking that we're going to have an issue of this. Monolism combats the heresies of the reformers, according to which both sinners and the just have lost the freedom of will. Freedom of will has not been destroyed by... okay, all right. Okay, so let me, a little bit of work there, but I see now why he speaks about Calvinism is this idea of, that that original sin has destroyed our freedom of will, and we certainly don't believe that, right? And that this freedom remains unimpaired under the influence of divine grace. Okay, which is the Catholic response to Molinism. All right.
Okay, so you're going to get back on that and answer.
So tell you what, we had some holdovers from last week, which you didn't get to because of your laity.
Right.
So how about for Thursday night, since we're going to skip a week, we film the answers to those questions and this question and put it out.
Okay, let's do that. I like that. We can do that.
All right. Next is the rainerific? Rainerific. Is it wrong to pray to a departed loved one and ask them for prayers? What if the departed person wasn't Orthodox but Protestant instead?
And since we don't know sometimes what God's will is, and we don't have the mind of God, then every prayer we believe is effectual, and that God hears each prayer. How he will answer that prayer is not necessary, or may not necessarily be according to what our will is, what we think it's going to be. But we do believe that the church triumphant, and again, that there's a whole idea of how does that happen outside of time, and are they asleep, or how do they hear us if they're dead? Okay, but I know that myself, I have prayed both. I have prayed that that both my father and my grandparents are granted the benefit of the kingdom of God, that they're granted entry into the kingdom of God. But equally so, I've also asked, and I say, hey, Dad, help me out with this. If in an intercessory way. I mean, certainly my dad's not a saint, all right. But I have done that at times, and I've said, Dad, I know that you're watching over me, and I'm asking for your help in this manner. Okay, Dad, my dad doesn't talk to me. I don't have visions of my dad or anything like that. But I do believe that through my prayers, that and obviously knowing my dad's life, that I have the hope that he resides in, as we would say, the prayers, the bosom of Abraham.
Okay. Spiro asks, why is it considered inappropriate to cross your legs in church?
Pretty easy answer there. Because you're creating a relaxed position. Normally speaking, when you cross your legs, it's an indication of a relaxed posture, meaning that you are not attentive. And how many times during the service do I say, "Proskomen," let us be attentive? And normally speaking, when somebody is sitting there like this, they're usually not attentive. They're thinking about something else. So it's all about the relaxed position, which is inappropriate.
All right. And then our friend from Poland says, interesting, in Poland, for an Orthodox priest, we say batushka, and for his wife, we say matushka. Which matushka they say in the Russian.
In the Russian church, church too. So that must be a Slavic term, not necessarily a Russian term. Mm-hmm. But batushka is the priest. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
See? Learning something.
Pretty certain I skipped some questions, and now I have to find them. Do you know which ones?
Well, while you're doing that, while you're looking, I'll jump to the next question from John A1. And this is a question we get a lot. I'm going to interrupt our vestment series of Greek Orthodoxy 101 just so we can make a video about this.
Okay.
Because we get it quite a bit. It's a great question, John, but I think it's time that we do a full video. Can you explain a little about the idea of toll houses, and is this an accepted Orthodox teaching?
Okay, so I'll answer the second part first. Okay, it is not an accepted doctrine within mainstream Orthodoxy. I'm saying it that way because I know that you will read things like Father Seraphim Rose and others who will tell you, and you'll see it online, they will tell you that absolutely we believe in toll houses, okay? And that is not mainstream Orthodox doctrine. I wish...
No, we believe in Easy Pass. It's much more effective, and you don't have to stop. No. I'm kidding.
Jeez. Oh, good grief. So, give me 1 second here, because I should have had this.
We'll just watch you.
Yeah. Okay.
In uncomfortable silence.
Okay. So, Bishop Hierotheos of Nafpaktos. That's a mouthful to say. Okay. He wrote a book. He's written several books, and one of them is on excuse me, the end of life and what happens after we die. So life after death. Okay. And in that, he has a whole section, and so I want to bring that in, and that's what we'll make in the video. And he has a whole section, and he goes point by point, and he lists out 4 main reasons why it is antithetical to Orthodox theology and what Christ has preached, that we do not believe in tall houses. So that's
or
the
short houses.
Or
short houses.
Or short houses. Okay. So like I said, he's Metropolitan Hierothymos is very well recognized. He's written several very good books. And like I said, in the one on the life after death, he has a whole series on toll houses that he refutes that and shows why it's not consistent with Orthodox theology.
But for those who are completely lost, what is, just in 2 sentences, what is the toll house? What is that concept?
So the idea, just very briefly, the idea that after death, you go through a series of toll houses as you advance, and you have the demons on one side who are saying all the things that you've done wrong, and you've got the angels on the other side who are supporting you, and there's this constant tension, and you keep ascending, until are the demons able to pull you off? So the main issue that we have is that it speaks of scales. So you're being judged on the balance of your works. And any good Protestant will tell you that you don't earn salvation through works. And that's what Bishop Hierotheos speaks as the main issue with that, is what we are telling our people is that you will be judged on your works, your good works versus your bad works. And if one outweighs the other, then you go down. And this is not at all what Christ preached, because none of us are worthy. And toll houses speak about how we have gained our worthiness because we've had more good deeds than we've had bad deeds.
All right. And then Mig says, about intercession, what should we say when told that we ask for intercession because we feel that our prayers to God aren't enough or heard? So we ask dead saints and Mary to pray for us.
Well, and you've heard Brigidetta, you've heard Terry say this a number of times, and she certainly grew up in Protestantism in the Baptist Church, and her argument to that, and you can chime in here, is that if we're going to then get rid of the intercession of saints, then we need to get rid of prayer chains. Because why should I ask anybody living, whether dead or alive, why should I ask for their prayers if prayers to God are enough? So you can't have your cake and eat it too. That would be the argument. Is okay, if you're not going to believe that the saints through the will of God can hear our prayers, and that those are not effective, then why are the prayers of the living any more effective?
Well, some say that only God is omnipotent. So how could the saints, how could they possibly hear our prayers? Only God can hear. So that would be the argument.
Okay, all right. And so the answer to that is, where do you see that in church tradition that we have not prayed for the saints? In fact, you don't see that in church tradition. You see where in the epistles we have asked for the prayers of those who have departed. So we actually have scriptural evidence of that. All right, but we don't have any scriptural reference where we are told to absolutely ignore those who have died and to ignore the saints of the church.
All right. Let's see.
We have about 4 new ones while we finish with those.
All right. Let's see. From Ray, is that the one you're... Mm-hmm. So from Ray, is the church starting to address the priest shortage as a more imminent emergency? What do you believe the solutions might be?
Well, I think that both the Orthodox and the Catholic Church have spoken out for many years about and cried out that there is a shortage of priests. All right, but what I don't think we've done a good job of, and again, I've got to lump myself in this category. Is one of the priest's responsibility to nurture the idea of priesthood among his flock, if I could say that. One of the priests I know says, that part of the I don't want to say judgment of a priest, but part of the mark of a good priest is how many priests he's produced. That's one of the marks. Okay, and so sometimes we get caught so caught up in the daily things that we're doing, is that we as priests are not doing as much as we need to make sure that we're developing that and nurturing that next generation of priests. All right, Nobody thought that I was going into the priesthood, but there was a priest who recognized that in me, and he made sure that he nurtured. He took the time out to nurture, and so that really falls at the feet of the priest, because he's the one that's in the trenches, on the ground, seeing those people. So, in terms of what needs to be, is it a problem? Yes, it is a problem, but it also. What the only real solution is that the priests also have to encourage the idea of priesthood. one of the things that they're doing wrong, that generally we do wrong, is what ended up happening with the Army slogans. And there was a while where the Army slogan was, "It's a great profession and you can use it on your resume." And that was no good, because it's the being in military service is not just a job. I mean, it's a passion. It's what you do. Okay, it builds your whole character. I mean, it's not just a 9-to-5 job. I mean, you are totally invested. Okay, and they tried to sell it as, wow, this is a great resume builder, and that failed miserably. And that's the same thing I think that is happening today. Well, if you become a priest, the first thing is, well, what kind of money can I make? What are the retirement benefits going to be? How many days off do I get? If that's what we're encouraging about, you can be a priest. No, then we're doing the same thing wrong that the Army did. Which is talk about the fact that this is a calling and a passion that engulfs you totally, but the rewards are incredible. Priests need to speak more about how rewarding it is to be a priest. And I can definitely attest to that in my time. And I have just as much passion as I have for that as I had for being a soldier. I didn't think of soldiering as a job, and I don't think of the priesthood as a job. So we got to get away from this idea that it's a profession. It has professional standards, but it's not a profession.
All right. Very thorough answer. Mr. Lavender, other than the Eucharist, is there anything else I should not do as a non-charismated Christian in church?
Other than receive communion?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing I can think of. You should make the sign of the cross. You should do prostrations. You should attend liturgy. You should get up there and, if the priest allows you, should get up there and practice chanting. I mean, there's I would do as much as possible, but like you said, the only thing is you can't receive communion.
Are there a couple of other minor things, such as not minor, but like more specific things, such as being a godparent?
Oh, okay. So a general statement is that you cannot participate sacramentally. So you can't be a cubaro. What is the translation of cubaro?
Best man.
Best man. So you can't be a best man at the wedding. You can't be a godparent at a baptism. Sacramental. You can't receive communion. You can't receive. You can now. The anointing of holy oil, I mean, I have given that to people that I saw in the hospital that weren't necessarily Orthodox. So that's sacramental, kind of little on the fence. Obviously, you can't be ordained, so you cannot participate sacramentally. So that good point. Good point.
All right. Patty Peterson asks, why do we reject purgatory?
And that'll be our final question of the day.
So it's interesting because St. Mark of Ephesus, although he didn't use the word purgatory, he uses more what St. Paul uses in ways of purification. That there is a purifying fire that all of us go through. Some of us, as some of the saints did, that purifying fire happened in their martyrdom. And that's where they were purified. But we believe there is also a state of purification that can happen even after death. But to make it a formal doctrine that describes exactly how that process of purification happens, that's the stumbling block for us. And that's, again, our general stumbling block with Catholicism is this idea of having to over-rationalize everything so that everything must have a definitive explanation. And that's really one of the major differences theologically between the two churches, is that for us, explanation doesn't have it. There is not everything that needs to be explained, and purification through fire, can be the end statement without any additional details.
All right.
And John, I just want to add, you had some very, very interesting comments here. I very much enjoyed reading them. So.
All right. So I think that's it.
I think that's
All
it.
right.
That's it, right? Almost on the 90-minute mark. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, we had some leftover questions from last week, which because of your trip, I mean, he literally walked in 5 minutes before the show. We cut it close today.
Yes, we did. But
so we'll take those questions, and the one question from today, we'll do a pre-recorded session for next week while we're off on hiatus, and then we'll be back the following week. So for those of you who are
unless you got another friend's getting married.
Yeah, it's been happening a lot. The moment I got married, the rest of my friends followed suit, apparently. I'm very happy for them. But for those of you unfamiliar with our channel, every once in a while, if we have too many times off, we try to fill it in with a pre-recorded session just for everybody's enjoyment.
Good.
So,
all right, but thank you very much. So we've got a couple of exciting things happening this weekend, and we'll have the pre-recorded session, and we'll see you live in 2 weeks.
See you live in 2 weeks, but we still will have both Sunday services.
We will be still live streaming.
Yes. All right, with that said, have a great night, everyone.
Thanks a lot for your questions.